Welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. This is Nolan Cox filling in for Mason. He is right next to me, so we're going to get this thing cracking. Mason, kick us off.
7 platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Those are the 7, Nolan. He started off on a very good note. Yes, it is a bit of a weird one. I've got my family in here who's probably going to absolutely roast me, so I'm a bit nervous going into this, but I think it's going to be great fun. But yeah, check us out on 7 platforms, like, comment, everything else, and we've got some amazing stuff coming up. But this one is a very special one, being family in town at the moment and doing one with a brother. Now, I don't really know. There's going to be a lot to cover here. It's going to be a lot to cover. You've known me for 31 years. 31 years. Nolan is a little bit older than I am. So he's known me for 31 years, and he's known all the juicy details and the hot gossip behind the scenes. So I'm a bit nervous. I am a bit nervous, but I will intro you as I do everyone, and it's probably going to sound very much like me. He grew up in Dallas, Texas, played basketball at Oklahoma State University. That was the highlight of his athletic career. Wait, no, hold on. He also played footy in the USAFL, still does now, and he's how many times you won the national championship?
I think we've won 5 or 6.
5 or 6 time national championship. Yes, he has got way more grand final wins than I do, but he lives in Austin, Texas now, and he essentially hosts a homeless person during my off season for about 3 weeks. And he's the great man and the brother himself, the man who's been through a lot with me, and someone I highly respect. But thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah,
brother
thanks
Nolan.
for having me. Appreciate it. I like the Austin Crows gear. You got the shirt on.
It is.
And I've got the Collingwood hat, so we're
kind of swap places. If anyone doesn't know, Austin Crows is the USAFL team he plays on. These are all the national championships he's won with.
Yeah, if anybody can kick the ball at more than 10 meters, you're welcome to come out.
Jump on in.
Probably start on the wing. Yeah, exactly.
Go straight in. We'll start because a lot of people is kind of, I guess, giving people an intro into not only yourself, but also kind of ourselves in general, because we grew up the same place, grew up doing the same kind of thing, both played basketball at university, like somewhat of a same intro into where we're at now. And I want to cover things because there's so many people that ask me so many questions, and I'm sick and tired of my opinion of where I grew up. And I want to get your opinion on what's going on and what is happening in the U.S., and then also just, you know, what we can learn from what's going on over there. We'll start. We grew up both Dallas, Texas. Now, a lot of people say Dallas, Texas, you know, we think of cowboys, we think of, you know, Indians and cowboys and the wild, wild west, and everyone rides horses and everything else. You know, what was it like growing up in Texas?
The Dallas-Fort Worth area has 8 million people, which is 3 million more than Melbourne. There was no horses. There were no cowboys. There were no Indians. And we pretty much had the same exact upbringing probably as a lot of folks here in terms of like just going to public school and driving on paved roads and not having any of the stereotypes that you typically see. But down in Central Texas, where I live now, you get outside of town a little bit, outside of Austin, and there's some country to it, right? So like there's definitely some horses, ranches, that type of stuff. So if you get out far enough, West Texas, and out east, like you get some of that. But no, where we grew up, there's none of that. Absolutely none of it. And pretty typical suburban upbringing.
Do you have a cowboy hat?
I do have a cowboy hat.
Cowboy boots.
I have got some cowboy boots. Yeah.
Do you have a pearl snap?
I might have a pearl snap.
Yeah, okay, we're not helping this stereotype.
That's right. That's a good point. Yeah. Well, you got to go to the country concerts every now and then.
Yes.
Got to be looking the part.
Now, the country music doesn't really exist in Australia.
Yeah.
It is up in like Tamworth, I think, is the big Tamworth Country Music Festival in Australia. That's the big one. But here in Australia, it doesn't really exist. Now, back in America, we've got what we call Billy Bob's, Texas. A lot of people some might know that. I don't know, but it's
honky tonk.
The world's largest honky tonk. Now, if you don't know what a honky tonk is, I'll let you describe it.
It's basically like a country dance hall. So like in these small towns, I'm sure back in the day, they had live music, and they still do at some of these big dance halls. But Green Hall's a real famous one close to where we're at. Billy Bob's up in the Dallas area. But it's just definitely a place where you can be a fake cowboy for a night and wear those cowboy boots that otherwise never see the light of day.
Yeah. And then also there is a rodeo inside Billy Bob's too. So you can actually ride a bull within Billy Bob's at the same time, if that gives you any idea of how country this place is. But there are plenty of stuff in America and also in Dallas that is kind of unique to anything else. Now, I want to obviously talk to you about sport. Now, you played football. I played soccer, kind of going through high school and everything else, or college as they call it here, before we went to university. There's a few different words that might get mixed up. But what was it like in Dallas? I know everyone here is obvious, like football, NFL is massive in the U.S. And I try to describe it to people of how big it is in Texas. Like maybe people have heard of Friday Night Lights, like and things like that, of really giving the image of just how chaotic and just nuts of a fan base it is for like NFL in America. What was it like being in a big school, like a big school and in high school playing NFL in that sense, growing up through the system. And like we talk about like homecoming, people don't quite understand like what a mom is, and like, what it's like wearing the big leather jacket or the school jacket with all the patches and everything else. I never got one of those, but like give us an idea of, I guess, what it was like playing football in high school and how big it was for the town.
Yeah, football in high school is big time. So you'd play in front of 15, 20,000 every Friday. So Friday night, basically the way football happens in American football, Thursday night is like the junior varsity. So like it's the, basically year 9 through 11. And then Friday night is the big Friday Night Lights, as I know. And that's the varsity team. So like varsity programs play, cross city rivals and stuff like that. The Friday night games, like Friday Night Lights, actually my coach in high school was in the original book that all the movie and all the, the TV show and all that was based off of. So out of Permian, out in West Texas. But yeah, and Friday night, and then Saturday goes into the college game. And then Sunday, of course, is the NFL. So it kind of like rolls into the weekend with, nobody really goes to the JV game unless, you're lucky enough to have a girlfriend sophomore year or whatever, right? Like, it's kind of obligated. So nobody's coming to my games except mom and dad. But, and then, Friday night, man, they get pretty big. So like some of the bigger rivalries we played in, like Jerry World, like Cowboys Stadium where they play. Cause the high school stadiums would just be overflowing. But some of these high school stadiums like are, multi-million dollar stadiums. And I mean, you'd get bigger crowds than you would at, certain teams. We won't name the AFL, but
North Melbourne. We hate on North a bit on this. Just a little future Tassie.
It's all right.
No, but it is like Allen, Texas, I think has like a stadium that holds like 50,000 people, and it's like that's a high school. That's not even like a proper. It's not even to the point of amateur of college. Like, and then you got NFL beyond that. So it's tough to describe like how a whole town will shut down for a whole bunch of like 14 to 18-year-old kids running around hitting each other. Like, it just doesn't really make sense in the grand scheme of things. But nuts. It is insane. And like, football is just a massive thing. Now, I played soccer, which was not watched so much, and was not really, wasn't as interesting to people. Let's say that. Now, everyone in America, though, like everyone here kind of plays AFL in Melbourne growing up. A lot of kids will play rugby up in Sydney. Now, most people played soccer growing up. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, like soccer is definitely the biggest youth sport in the States. And then, when you get into high school, it kind of just disappears because like it all goes club, right? So like in high school, like basketball, you've got like AAU, you've got high school basketball, and then football is pretty much just high schools, right? There's no like club football, club American football, right? Like soccer is all club. So like it just kind of depends on the sport. Like baseball is just the high school sports. Like there's no club baseball. So it kind of is like pretty bizarre the way that they have like the clubs versus the high schools and stuff. But yeah, you'd definitely need to be going to like camps and stuff like that to get recruited for football. But soccer was kind of, you had a lot more games in. Like high school football, it's 10 or 15 games and you're done for the season. So like if you have a bad run or you get hurt your junior year when you're getting recruited,
tough.
Like, tough, exactly. So, but high school football is big time. I mean, soccer, maybe not so much.
Yeah, not so much. We're getting there. MLS in America is becoming bigger and bigger.
Is it?
I don't know. We had David Beckham come over there. I felt like that was a big get for the LA Galaxy. Big get for the LA Galaxy. But now we'll talk about more of away from sport now. People, we're going to get a little bit deep here now. In America, a lot of people will ask me, the first thing they ask about is three things. They ask about Trump, guns, and religion.
Right.
And those will hit all three.
Well, I'm glad you had me on the podcast today.
Yeah.
I want to talk about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I'm just joking.
What is it like now? I tell people all the time, I go like to school, and on a Sunday, if I go into school on a Friday, like I know I'm going to see a lot of my schoolmates on a Sunday.
Yep.
And they're all going to be at church on a Sunday. And that was just kind of normalized. Like we're here in Australia, like I really would struggle to even know one person that goes to church.
Yeah.
And it's like, it blew my mind whenever I came here, of not necessarily like it's probably just a lack of care of religion in a sense of like in America, it's so ingrained in politics and culture and, ingrained in families and everything else. We're here, like we grew up Catholic. Like, do I go to church every Sunday? No. But
most Sundays.
My mom listens to this podcast, or our mom listens to this podcast. We do go to church every Sunday, Mom, in our heads. But yeah, now it's different. And like, what is it like, I guess, give us a bit of a description on the differences in religion, based in America, and maybe how it's changed. I feel like it's so much different now, where a lot of people probably aren't as heavily religious as they were probably 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely it's gotten less, well, at least less prevalent in our lives. And maybe that's like not having families and not having kids and stuff like that. Like I think once, it's definitely a good piece of structure to like raise a family with, right? So like I know, when we were growing up, we'd always want to spend the night at our friend's house on a Saturday night, and it's like tough. You got to get to mass on Sunday. So, but no, I think, yeah, it's definitely like gotten less prevalent the older we've gotten, just in general in society. But like, I think a lot of people have also been like a lot more open to different ideas and different religions. So like when we were growing up, it was, obviously predominantly Christian from what we saw in our day-to-day lives. But now I think like more and more people have more exposure to different religions and different faiths. And like, I think, if nothing else, it's just a good way for like people to build a sense of community, which is a cool, it's a cool thing. So like, whether you're religious or not, like I definitely like see the value in it. And it's, kind of cool that like people can now get into like Buddhism or Islam or whatever they want.
Growing up, it was unique. Everyone went to church Sunday, saw all your mates there, saw all your friends. Mom and dad had all their friends from church and everything else, and it's just very different. Now, moving from religion to the next hot topic of Dallas, Texas, and what everyone loves to ask is, do you own a gun?
From mass to mass shootings, great. Good transition. No, I don't have any guns. I think everybody thinks like everyone's just rocking around with like shotguns strapped to their back, go to the grocery store to get
just like, in case.
No, like this does not happen in Texas or anywhere in America. But no, like no guns for me. No guns for most of the people I know, really. Like I know a few hunters that like have hunting rifles and stuff like that, but like nobody's rolling around with like a pistol strapped to their side. Like that's just ridiculous.
Can if you want. You can have an open carry.
Now legally, yes, you can, but but people don't do it
not necessity. Not a necessity. Because a lot of people, obviously, there's massive things we've talked about previously in mass shootings and everything else, and like it is so unique here because they had Port Arthur shooting, then everyone was like, nah, give your guns to the government, we're going to burn them all, and then like essentially we'll give you a rebate and you'll never see guns in this country again unless you need them for farming or whatever it might be. Where people go to America and they go, oh my gosh, like I've never seen a gun before, and then like you get in an Uber and the guy's got one in his glove box. You're like,
go to Walmart. Just pick up whatever you want.
Look at Walmart. But it's so different. I think it's unique that people here always ask about it, and it's like so different, I guess, from Australia and America. And,
most people don't have guns, but like the people who have their guns love their guns. So like you hear a lot more from those people, and obviously like, when things go wrong with guns, it goes about as wrong as it can get. So like,
has it changed much in the last 5-10 years with like the idea behind it?
For sure. Yeah, definitely the sentiments have changed a ton, like with the amount of mass shootings and stuff, which are just, ridiculous. Like people at the very least right now, like the big push is just to get rid of fully automatic weapons to start, right? Like you have to start somewhere with this stuff. Like people aren't just going to like give up their guns. But I think the pro-gun people are so afraid that like, all right, once you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, and then they're going to start taking off everything. So like anytime they start really debating, gun laws and everything, like ammo sales go through the roof, people start stocking up like it's about to be World War III or something, right? So like that part's pretty wild. But no, I mean, I think, like there's just really, hunting rifles, some of that stuff I get, but like there's absolutely no need for a fully automatic weapon in everyday life, like unless you're literally going to war, which we are not, hopefully.
We're not, hopefully.
So yeah, that's, I don't know. Just nuts.
Well, moving on from guns to a gun-loving man that is Donald Trump. How was the last 4 years living with him in power?
The last 4 years.
I bounced. I was like, I'm out. Hey, it's been real, guys, but you guys enjoy it. I'm not dealing with this. We'll see you later.
2 of the last 4 years have been with your boy Joe Biden.
My boy Joe.
Your boy Joe.
Sleepy Joe.
Keep that on your chest while my portfolio could take an absolute nosedive. Thanks a lot, Sleepy. I mean, look, it's like politics in the U.S. is just kind of nuts. Right?
Wild.
Like, you can go from like hosting a reality show to like being the president of the United States, which maybe not the best, most qualified candidate, but then, like Joe Biden's, you'd say like very qualified, right? Lifetime politician, and has been in it forever. And like there are things that he got dealt a pretty, like both of them got dealt a pretty rough hand with COVID. Like Donald Trump is just like, I mean,
what's the wildest thing he said that you just listen to and you're like, this is absurd?
My personal favorite, and there's a lot, is when he said he was going to nuke the hurricane that was about to hit New Jersey. Like, what are you talking about? So like, from that standpoint, Donald Trump, like, there's some fun to like.
It was entertaining. It was entertaining.
Yeah, like fun's probably not the right word. Entertaining is a better description. But my goodness, like we're gonna nuke a hurricane. Like, listen, love him or hate him, like that is the most absurd thing I've ever.
I don't think Jane Bond will be recommending that one.
No. So like just having somebody where you never know like what you're gonna wake up to was. The problem is like God knows what else he's gonna try to nuke. So it was pretty unsettling from that perspective. But like just a total loose cannon. Like I'm very very glad that he is out of office for the time being. I think he's already announced 2024 candidacy. But man, he's hopefully long gone. And then, we need some younger folks. We can't have these like 80-year-olds in here trying to run the country. We need some people a little bit younger and
everyone always
fresher ideas.
Oh, can Obama come back just please,
right?
Can we just can you just come back? Like, let's change the rules. Third time.
Right. So like, I don't know, the power of the president, like you want somebody who at the very least has like respect for the office and like presents that they want the best for America.
Yeah.
And Obama had that. And like, I don't know that I know that Donald Trump did not have that. Like, I don't know that we'll have somebody like anytime soon that'll sort of, have the respect of the office and the people the way that Obama did it. Politics aside, like I feel like he at least wanted what's best for the American people, which is like, it should be like literally the only prerequisite for the job, but somehow we've gotten away from that. So what do you do?
Unreal. Well, our family is somewhat divided whenever it comes to the presidential debate at times, but I will go into the next thing because I want to talk about family, and we've got obviously amazing parents. Everyone knows Phil Cox, Filthy Phil. Follow him on the Twitter account, Phil Cox 018. I might regret saying that. But what was it like? I guess like everyone always asks, like, did you grow up playing sport? Did you grow up, traveling a bunch for sport and everything else? And like, what was it like? And I think the biggest thing I always talk about was like, I was super lucky that I had a mom who worked, a dad who worked, and like, was supportive all the way through our different athletic careers and everything we did.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of cool to see him somewhat getting a return on investment of that and like being able to enjoy AFL and enjoyed us playing soccer and basketball and football and everything else. Like, what was it, I guess, what were our parents like growing up? What was it like, we all played sport, like all three, like we've got another brother, Austin, like, and we all three played sport and had two parents that somehow jumped around, like being able to pull us from place to place to be able to get us to practices and everything else. What was it like, I guess, like having the support of family? Like, I think anyone that would, be a professional athlete, like it's all about your support group and the circle you have and everything else. What's it like having Phil Cox and Jay Cox as parents?
Nah, they're great, man. Like, like you said, I mean, they worked full-time jobs and then also coached our soccer teams, our baseball teams, all that stuff. Like, despite having never kicked a soccer ball in their lives, like all of a sudden, qualified to be a coach for the under 10s, whatever. But
the Jammers.
Yeah. Hey,
shout out the Jammers.
Oh man, the Jammers killing. We had some good squads. No, but they were, I mean, they're kind of be packed full. It was kind of the craziest like thing I can remember from that was when we were kids, like we'd have, like baseball or soccer, or whatever, all across town. And this is like pre-cell phone days. Like, not, like you'd like have one cell phone for the family that you'd share or whatever. And like, they'd have to go the night before and just like plan out the schedule. And it's like, I'll meet you at field 7 at like 12:30. It's like, guess what? Like if you get a flat tire, like you just don't know where your, the rest of your family is. Like, hopefully they're okay. Yeah. Won't be talking to them. So they used to plan it out. And it was like, then by your senior year of high school, like I ended up walking on the basketball team at Oklahoma State. So I'm playing in college, like 4 hours away, and they're driving up to those games, even though like I'm not getting playing time. I got like NBA players I'm sitting behind on the bench, right?
That was me too.
Exactly. So like, I'm like, Mom, Dad, like, you don't have to come to this stuff. And they're like, listen, we've been coming to your games for like 15, 20 years, you and the boys. And like, this is the last year. It's Mason's last year of high school soccer. It's your last year of college basketball, which we didn't even think was going to happen. And then, they got a couple years off. And then it's like, then you walk on and they're like, oh my gosh, like 3 more years of this, which is like, pretty cool. And then they're like, all right, now we're definitely done. Mason's not going to the NBA. This is the last game we'll ever have to watch. Like, it's been a good run. And here we are in a van in Australia 8 years later, and Mom and Dad are flying halfway across the world to watch some ridiculous sport we've never heard of. So but no, I mean, that's like, but back to your point, like your original question, the type of support they had, like we had a parent at every single game. I've had a parent at every single game I've ever played, like at pretty much any level of sport, which is like just really lucky, honestly. Like a lot of people don't get born into having that supportive of a family. So like, I mean, to your point, like it's cool that Phil now gets to reap the rewards of just being like the biggest footy nut field playing on earth from, or at least on the continent of North America.
And on Twitter.
That's true too. So no, it's good, man. Couldn't ask for better. I'm
going to ask you this because you mentioned it. Now, a walk-on. So we're going to like the college days. Now, a lot of people don't understand what a walk-on is.
Yeah.
Can you explain? Because to give a background for everyone else, like yourself, you were a walk-on before I got there 4 or 5 years beforehand.
Right.
And then 4 or 5 years later, I walked onto the basketball team, which is not professional level, but probably has the money of professionalism as far as Australia. Like I think there's probably more money in NCAA than all of us, like AFL for sure.
For sure.
So people don't understand, I guess, like the number game behind that and what we did. Can we dive into a bit of, we'll start with what is a walk-on, because a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah. So walk-ons are the non-scholarship players. So usually the guys who are a little bit of like a tackling dummy in football, or they just, the guys that get dunked on during the basketball drills.
Dunk on Mason drill.
Yeah. It's usually the white guys at the end of the bench waving the towels. It's like not quite there athletically, but like really have a lot of spirit about them,
It's a real good spirit.
Yeah, exactly. So like, no, so I hadn't played high school basketball, right? So like, once I got tall, I started playing a lot of pickup, and then it was like, I tried out for the basketball team in 7th grade.
Yeah.
Didn't make it. Tried out in 8th grade. Didn't make it.
Hadn't hit your growth spurt yet.
Hadn't hit the growth spurt yet. That's right. And then high school, I didn't play. I played football and got into that. Football, you couldn't get cut from the team. So it was like, as long as you showed up every day, we're on it. We got a chance. Then I tried out so they had tryouts my sophomore year of college. Didn't make it. Senior year, I was like, you know what? We'll give it one last crack. We've not made the basketball team every other time in my entire life, dating back to 7th grade, but somehow
that
snuck in.
So there was an actual tryout.
An actual tryout, yeah.
Tryout goes well. This is just random kids going to university.
Yeah,
this is just students.
Yeah, exactly. So these are students that like are not in school to play sports. So like most of them, I mean, don't get me wrong, like a lot of them played like pretty high level high school sports and stuff like that. And then they were like, I could either play like a small college or something like that, but I'd rather just like have fun, go to college and go to a big school with my friends. So like, yeah, you end up like just in a tryout with, whatever, like 100 other kids. And I got lucky and ended up like making that. I think they took 4 of us and played my senior year, which was pretty sweet. And then you started coming to the games. We're playing against, pretty big time players. And
who's the biggest player you ever played against that people might know?
The most famous is probably Blake Griffin. So played him 3 times.
Yeah, okay.
Yep,
Kevin Durant though. Didn't you play Kevin Durant?
That was the year before I walked on. So at the game, but didn't play against him. But yeah, Blake Griffin. I wouldn't say I played against Blake Griffin, but I was on the team when we played against Blake.
You shook his hand at the end of the game.
That's right. Hey, great game.
Great game. Yeah. Hey, good luck in the NBA. I will not be there.
Won't be there. No, I'll be watching on TV.
Now, describe. So you're a walk on. Now, walk on essentially has everything but scholarship, which is the money to go to university and pay for classes and books and all this kind of stuff. So like you're paying. You're going into debt. Well, we were fortunate enough. God bless to have mom and dad to help pay for college. Yep. But a lot of people go into debt to pay for university and then go back and pay that loan off. Now you're a college student. You're not getting paid. You're giving all this time to this basketball program that's not really giving you anything back, but this experience. What's it like? I guess was it always like? Because I think people don't understand how big of a deal it would be to actually walk onto a team.
Yeah,
like it is a life goal, and it's like, man, this is gonna be the biggest athletic accomplishment I've ever done in my life. Like this is amazing. Like I remember the first time I walked on, like. It was, free clothes. How good's this? Yes. And I was like, dude, a private jet? We get free Chick-fil-A? Like, what in the world? Like, this is insane.
9
pairs of shoes in 1 year. Like, I had to pay for my shoes for my whole life. And then now all of a sudden I get for free.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, like, the process of you getting there is very similar to mine. So you actually helped out with the women's team.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild. So you go women's team, start kind of, I guess, like, because both of us never played basketball growing up. And we start playing the local rec league, and then the local rec league, you go and help out the women's team, and the women's team, you go into the men's team, and then you start playing there.
Right.
Like, what was it like, I guess? How did you get up into the women's team?
Yeah, I just had a friend that was doing it like the year before. He was like, hey, look, like they play at the big stadium. We basically like have, instead of playing pickup games here at the rec center, like you get to play at this like nice 15,000 seat arena. It's pretty cool. And so like you just go rock up and they send you the flashcards and they're like, all right, you're going to be the center. So run this play. And then you run it against the women's team and then they'll just unlock the gym. And the coaches were awesome. Like they'd get us like barbecue and buy us a keg at the end of the year and stuff.
Buy us a keg for the end of the year.
Yeah, big time.
Wow.
Yeah. So
big fan of that. I never got that whenever I was in college. I had to pay for my own.
Well, not that ever really happened, but no. So it was great. Well, I think that actually like, whenever I tried it out for the men's team, I'm sure at some stage they were like, like we should get a reference or something. And I like to think that like the women's team was like, this guy's stand up dude or whatever. And you get on, but cause they need just reliable, like, solid
show up every week. Yeah.
Exactly. So like, so the women's team thing was just kind of a fun knock around thing with my friends. Like it wasn't like a big time commitment or anything like that. So we're kind of doing them a favor. And then, you start playing on the men's team and it's like full on, like you're doing 2 days, morning sessions, 6 a.m. Then you're doing the afternoons, like full on practice. And then, but yeah, the private jets and stuff like that. I mean, it's like a completely different world than what you have as a normal college kid. Like there was a game that I was not like, when I first started, like I wasn't traveling to every game and we had practice one day and our coach was like, are you coming to the game in like Corpus Christi today? And it was like, Corpus Christi is like a 3-hour flight. And I'm like, I don't know. I've class tomorrow. He's like, yeah, just come. And I was like, well, the flight's like right after practice. Like, how would I get there? He's like, well, just hold the plane until you get there. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Just hold
like,
the private jet.
Yeah, hold the jet until, So I'm like, for me, who like didn't play basketball until like organized basketball until like 2 months ago, now they're holding the plane for me or whatever, like just ridiculous. So some of those experiences, like you just never would expect. And then the facilities and stuff, to your point, like there's so much money in these. Like you've got like all this TV money that rolls in for college sports and like
billions and billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars, right? So like in college football and college basketball are like the two sports that actually like are profitable for, and especially the TV rights deal for football kind of pays for every other sport, right? So like the locker rooms and all that stuff are just absolutely ridiculous. And like you kind of come over and when you're getting recruited a couple years later, it's like, check out these facilities. We're walking through these different clubs. I'm like, oh yeah.
This is an AFL, by the way. We were
Sorry,
just
you're getting recruited for AFL, and I'm like, oh man, my high school facilities are pretty similar to this.
Yeah,
like, college is pretty, whole another level.
Can't really tell them that; they'll take offense to it. But
no. Well, there's some really cool stuff here. Like, I mean, Collingwood's facility having like the Olympic swimming facilities, like, it's super sweet, right? So like, it's a bit of history there, and then you got the modern part of it. But like, compared to like
the college, we had like, I remember one thing that blew my mind was like we had a pool table, and the pool balls had like were customized pool balls and had like logos and everything else, and like we had the cow skin like couch and everything else, and the 20 TVs and the saunas and the hot pools and cold pools, and I think the shower heads were like $500 each, and there's a $500,000 marble staircase going downstairs, and then like you have this whole gym that's literally underneath the actual like the court you play on, and there's a track around that. Like, it's just like next level kind of stuff. And then I came here and I was like, oh, this is good, don't get me wrong, but like some things need to be probably updated. Where like whenever there's billions of dollars pumped into something, like I think what was it, Boone Pickens, who's like the big donator, he's donated over like $1 billion to the school. It's like one person, right? Like how he's got his name on the side of the stadium. He's still alive.
To one school,
right? And there's
so that's stuff's happening all over the country. So it's pretty wild. I mean, it's just. It's different. And like, it's a bigger market, right? Like there's, 350 million people in the States and there's a lot of those went to college and, they want to be able to brag on Monday that their football team
exactly
got up, right? So,
now what is, so like, we're talking back to like basketball, college, everything else. I'm a bit nervous on this because a lot of people don't know about my college life. Well, I've dabbled into it here and there. Don't get me wrong. I've said a few things. Now, you would know some stuff that I probably don't want out there.
Oh.
And I'm happy to be in this open conversation, right? So, freshman year, pretty tame.
Pretty tame. You're in the dorms.
In the dorms.
Can't bring alcohol to the dorms.
Legally.
You can like get kicked out of the school. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So like, you know what I mean? Like, if you get caught doing that, it's like if you get caught off campus with alcohol, right? It's like not as big of a deal. On campus, it's like you don't want to put the actual college career in jeopardy because you want to be able to have a lot more binge-filled evenings later on in life, right?
Now we got from the first year is pretty tame. Second year, I live in a place called the Hester House.
The Hester House.
Now this is
disgusting.
I'm trying to find the best way to put this.
The best way I
should have been condemned about 20 years before I moved in.
Rent was $175 a month.
A month.
Which you get what you pay for.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. That was There's 5 stars.
A hole in the floor that you guys stole a traffic cone to put over just so that whenever you had parties, people wouldn't fall into the hole. Like absolute liability. And the upstairs, the upstairs was basically just collapsing into the downstairs. Somebody had cut a hole in the staircase where where the wall came down so they could fit their mattress and shove it up the staircase, which like it just can't be legal. Then like duct taped a beer can on a 90-degree angle to like cover up for the hole that was just cut with a saw into the hole. Like the whole thing. And funny enough, actually was condemned like a year or two after you left. So like no longer exists. Yeah, exactly.
We ran that thing into the ground.
Really nice apartment complex. My goodness, that place is an absolute dumb. And I lived in some pretty bad places too, but like that place took the cake. It was disgusting. And the people who lived there were equally disgusting. You being one of them. So yeah, this guy, I mean, like the type of person who would just break into his own home through the window because he'd forget his keys going out and, a few times. Rock up to like, Bible study tailgates with a handle of makers and just taking full triple gulps before stumbling his way back over to the game. This is at like 11 a.m. So I don't know if you guys have, you guys don't really have tailgates here, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to make it a thing.
You got to have tailgates. Like, the big parks up by the G, like if you guys just had that thing full of youths, big grills out the back, like that's what you guys need to get to.
It's almost the best part of the whole weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
The game's great, don't get me wrong, but the tailgating beforehand is even better.
Right. Yeah, the tailgating is money. So like that's where everybody just kind of gets together. You kind of bounce around to the different tailgates. And like what's cool too in the States, like in college, all the tailgates, when you're like at an away game, so like if you drive from like Oklahoma to Iowa for like the people in Iowa are just like, you guys came from Oklahoma, like have some beers, have some food, jump on in. Like thanks so much for coming. At least like the good schools, that's the way they do it. So yeah, it's a whole nother, but you guys got to get on the tailgating here.
I know. It's something I've been pushed for a long time. I think they tried it for a bit, but they just don't really understand how to do it.
Yeah.
And the thing is tailgating, like, because you get like the satellite and you can see like 20 different games in like NFL.
Yeah, so you have like the generator, the satellite up. You'd be watching all the like 5 different TVs in the back of the van or whatever. Not the back of the van, right? Like we're in the back of the van, but the back of the back of it. Yeah, you'd have the truck. Well, it's literally a tailgate, right? Truck tailgate open. Yeah, all the food out there.
Australians love a Barbie. You know,
yeah, exactly.
I haven't jumped into it, but it's some crazy stuff. Now, I think like because we went to a school, right? It was a very small town, Stillwater, Oklahoma. Shout out to the old Oklahoma State Cowboys.
That's right. I guess we were Cowboys.
We were. We're not really helping this whole thing. We went to a kind of somewhat of a small school. So now there are bigger schools in the middle of town, but where we live was very much a remote community in a sense. There was no city around it. Really, it was an hour and a half away.
Yep.
It was the school. The school ran the town. And I think anyone would agree with that. The school was run by a whole bunch of 18 to 23-year-olds. Yep. And like, can you imagine how chaotic and crazy that is?
Well, the population cut in half in the summer because all the kids went home from school. So like
insane.
You go from
like
40,000 person town, which is not very big to begin with, and then 20,000 leave. So
now describe me that, because if you are an athlete in that town, right? So we both played basketball. Now, the benefits of being an athlete in a small town: never stay in line, never stay in line for a bar, never had to pay for drinks. It was the greatest thing ever.
That's right. It's very similar to your life in Melbourne. You cut every line. You cut every line. You don't pay for anything. You just flick a text to somebody, and sure enough, tickets show up on your front doorstep, or you get, whatever it is. Like coming here with you is like being in college in a way. Like you just kind of rock out to wherever you want.
Professional college.
Yeah, exactly. And still super humble, which is great.
Every once in a while, it's got to bring me back down to earth.
Yeah, it's good.
Now, college, obviously, we'll move on from that. There's a lot of college stuff we could probably go into, but I probably won't be employed by the time we get this out.
That's a good point.
Now, before we get into the AFL side, because you've got a big kind of massive, you're my agent. Before I had agents here, you started. We're still waiting for your paycheck.
Still waiting on that, yeah.
But another passion we both have is travel.
That's right.
Now, we've traveled all over. We've been some pretty amazing places. We've been to Europe. You've done some time over there. You've been to Australia, obviously. You've been to Japan, everywhere else. Now, can you tell me the story about Patagonia and down in Punta Arenas?
Yes.
I don't know if I'm even
beautiful
saying
place,
that, but
probably
not.
Yeah, no, Patagonia is incredible. Like we did this like 6-day hike through the Torres del Paine, right? Southern tip of Chile, which is like about as far as you can get before you get to Antarctica. Like I think they have charter boats that go to Antarctica during the summer. But yeah, we're down in Chile, and like I remember this is like the first year you were playing, right? So like you're playing VFL, which is not exactly the most glamorous of lifestyles, right? Like you're not getting a ton of press coverage at that stage. But we're like at this hostel talking to these guys about just about life and travels and all that stuff. And they were kind of traveling through South America. And about an hour into the conversation, they're like, "Where do you guys live? Where you guys grow up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I live in Austin, Texas." And Mason goes, "I live in Melbourne." And they're like, "We know who you are." Like, we didn't want to be weird about it, but man, we know who you are. Like, so cool. Like, hope you guys make it or whatever. These guys are like from Perth or somewhere. And I'm like, I don't even know what Perth is at this point, but yeah, so ridiculous. So like, that's kind of like probably when I was on the recruiting trip when you kind of came over here first, but like, that was one of the first times I was like, man, these people really do like go nuts for this stuff. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So yeah, they're like, they know the VFL guys that are like traveling halfway across the world. But yeah, Punta Arenas, like, man, we had some good travels. Yeah. South America is really, really solid. Like, all over Asia and Australia and everything else. So
favorite place in Australia?
Favorite place in Australia that I've been. Tell you what, Tassie's good. Tassie's really good.
North Melbourne is good.
You guys trash on. No, you guys need to be nice to Tassie on this podcast. And you need to be nice.
I actually love Tassie. I've said it many times. Tassie's a beautiful place. Incredible. I'm just keen to get them in an AFL club, and I think North Melbourne's the best chance.
Good Lord. Fraser Island's really good.
Yeah,
like
great
that.
spot.
But yeah, I've been to Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne, obviously a ton. Great Ocean Road. Love Great Ocean Road. Goodness. Yeah, 12 Apostles is cool. I've been all that way down to Warrnambool.
Warrnambool. Shout out the hotel.
Yep, Vic Hotel down to Warrnambool. Yep.
Big fans of the Vic Hotel.
That's right. So yeah, no, I've kind of been all over, but yeah, I think I don't know. So like the big cities here, especially like the Melbournes and Sydneys, like they're very kind of similar to America. Like it's not like a very big culture shock coming here. Everyone's speaking English. You get like really good food, good like little pubs and stuff like that. But man, like my favorite travels are just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And like when you get out, some of these hikes and stuff at like Wineglass Bay and Tassie, or like out in Fraser where you're just driving the beach for hours, not seeing a soul. It's like, where else can you do this? Like you can't do this anywhere in America, like hardly anywhere else in the world. So that's the type of stuff that I'm like, this is like a truly a unique experience,
Yeah.
Like you're in Melbourne, like, it's a unique experience. Like things are a bit different, but it's still a really big city, right? So like, yeah, you get out there and some of these hikes and stuff. It's
epic.
elite. Yeah. Really,
Even like
really
New
good.
Zealand. I know you did the New Zealand trip.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So not
Unreal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been to New Zealand,
Milford Sound's
recommended.
maybe like, the best place I've ever been.
It's huge in the world.
We had these dolphins like rolling past our, like riding with our boat the entire way
All the
through
way
the
out the
sound.
sound.
This lady was like, this happens maybe once every like 2 or 3 months, and you guys just got the one lucky
Huge.
boat, right? So like, so we're just like looking. It feels like you're in like Avatar or something where it's like all CGI. It's
Yeah.
like, there's no way this is real.
not
But you're
real?
like,
How
but
does
I'm
this work?
here like now. Yeah. So that place is nuts. Yeah. But
She said every 2 or 3 months.
maybe like every month or two. But yeah, definitely not very often.
I had to break it to you whenever I was there.
Oh, no.
There was a dolphin.
She was really selling
She
me.
was sold it. She said, "There's probably no chance you'll come back to this." There was a dolphin. There was only one though. If you had a pod of dolphins, maybe it was a different
We had a
experience.
bunch. Yeah, we had a
we only
bunch.
had one. Apparently, it was kicked out of the pod, so it was. It was like, oh, this is so beautiful. I talked to the guy. He's like, yeah,
You're the
this
last
thing's gonna
people that
die
ever
soon.
saw
I was like, oh gosh, oh no, it was
Not
so
great.
beautiful until I heard the story. Well, we'll get into AFL now. You've been into this whole AFL was we didn't know what the hell it was.
Absolutely not.
We had no idea what we're getting ourselves into, and I want to dive into like the first experience of maybe whenever I had called you and I said, "Oh, I'm going to go to this thing in Los Angeles for this AFL combine," and
Right.
you were like, "What the is that?" What was your mindset on that? Because I tell people all the time, it was a whole thing. It's like. And we'll get back to this. As a degree doesn't expire, but opportunities like this always never come again.
Right.
And what was your thought process, I guess, as an older brother giving advice to someone else who has no idea what the hell it is and he's just gone out to a combine in LA for no reason whatsoever?
Yeah, the combine thing, I'm like, well, free trip to LA, go take it, right?
Yeah,
but like,
exactly.
as far as like what could have actually become of this with a sport I've never heard of, like my first thought is, probably like the parental instincts kicking in. I'm like, I had a couple guys I played basketball with in college that ended up in like Lithuania in some shady basketball league that like, couldn't afford it to play ticket home whenever the league folded or whatever. Like, we better make sure it's not that. So like, I go into like full on like Jerry Maguire mode, right? I'm like, I've got one client and I got to make sure he makes it.
One client can't stop this up.
That's right. So I jump in. I'm like, all right. So I'm, we always joke about like I was your first day, but like I was doing like a lot of legit research. I'm like, all right, are there like salary caps? Like, do you have to get drafted? Can you pick what club you go to? Like, what are the like if there's a salary cap, like what is the average salary? Like, what is the average career span? Like, what endorsement type of deals are there? So like I actually like kind of did a fair amount of research to make sure that you weren't going to be stuck in a foreign country with no plane ride home. And so by the time like we actually got the trip materialized, like, I was like pretty confident. I'm like, all right, I think that this is pretty legit, but you never That's right. Exactly.
And we had never seen this thing before. So until we actually had visual proof of it, I was like,
so I think that's what the AFL was thinking too, right? So like the AFL, I'm like, all right, again, full Jerry Maguire. I'm like, I'm going to start taking some phone calls. So I'm like talking to agents. I'm talking to different
This
clubs.
is like 3 a.m. in the morning, isn't it?
Yeah. So actually no, because like 8 a.m. Melbourne time would be like 5-ish back home. So like I get off work and I set all the meetings for like the morning in Melbourne, right? So like I jump off work and go straight into these Zoom calls or whatever. And I'm like, all right, so like we got to figure out a real agent who like knows how to run contracts and everything like that in America. I haven't passed the bar yet in America or in Australia, nor will I ever. But so I'm like, so I have conversations with these agents, with the league offices, some of the different clubs and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I don't know. Like,
what was your impression of the AFL? Was it like, this is legit? Like these people I'm talking to like know what they're talking about? Or like, were you kind of like, Mason's literally described this little combine thing he had and it was a bit not what he expected?
Yeah, well, the combine thing, I know that I think you've told the story before. There's like old ladies walking the track around the field or whatever.
Karen's
like,
Brighton.
Yeah, this is so like this is the field we're running. Like awesome, this is a good start. But yeah, so you were kind of like I don't know if you really wrote it off, but you're like whatever. I have finals. Like finals are kind of the big exams that you have to pass to be able to graduate. And you had those coming up in like a week or two, and they do a thing called dead week where like you just nobody goes out. It's just all study, like cramming for these finals basically the week before. And so you were going into dead week. You're like, I don't have time to deal with this stuff. Can you please like get on the phone with these people and just see if this thing is real? So I'm like, yeah, I got you. So that's whenever I start the whole, back and forth with all the different agents and the clubs and the league and whatnot. And then like, you kind of gave me, we're talking like kind of throughout the week. And by the end of the week, I'm like, no, it seems pretty legit. I don't know. Like there's a salary cap. There's like, and it's guaranteed, right? So like some of the sports,
that was a big thing.
Yeah, because like in the US, like if you're in the NFL, like your NFL contracts are guaranteed, right? So like if you get like drafted at the very end of the draft, tear an ACL, guess what? Don't get paid. Like you just signed a 3-year contract for $2 million a year, but like you're seeing literally none of that. So like they cut you and move on. So I was making sure that it wasn't anything like that too. So like, because obviously pretty brutal sport. Like, So I find out enough to think that, all right, this seems pretty legit. So we start talking again, and you're like, so what's the deal? Like, what do they want to do? Because all the different clubs are like, we want to fly him out. We want to fly him out. And the league's like, pump the brakes. We can't have him spend like 2 months over here with all these different clubs. Like we got to, we got to get this thing. So the league is like, listen, we want to fly him out. I'm talking, and they're like, we want to get him to 3 or 4 different clubs. So like we can have him check out a bunch of different facilities, meet a bunch of different people, and then kind of like just pick the one that seems like the best fit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. So I call you and you're like, I still don't know much about this thing. Like you're the only one that's really talked to these people. And so I call him back and I go, listen, he doesn't really want to go alone. They said, we'll fly you out too. And I said, we're in.
We're sold, Jerry. We're going. Sold.
Sold. So, then that started the whole thing, kind of kicked off the whole thing. So like they put together this trip and, we visit North, Richmond, Collingwood, and Port. And so we went to a couple different games, like went and visited all the different facilities and stuff like that. So, it was a pretty like wild time. Like, and I was like kind of full wheeling and dealing, like, or at least I thought I was, I thought I was killing. I'm sure like all the people in the league,
we had nothing to lose, really.
Idiots,
so it was
I'm like literally talking to like, we had, and at the time it was kind of funny too, because like you go to lunch with these people, you go to like, dinner with these like legends of the game, and we're like, never heard of any of these people.
Great to meet you. What's your name?
Yeah,
Eddie McGuire. Cool. Great to meet you.
Awesome. Yeah. What do you do? So and that happened over and over, right? Like, I think like one of the funniest things I remember from that trip was we're at Richmond, and I guess like, so Damien Hardwick picks us up from the hotel, right? And super nice, right? So like every club, and that's so good. And that's why I don't like you dumping on North of us, saying they were very accommodating whenever I was there.
No, I'm not dumping on North. I'm just saying it's an opportunity in Tassie.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Pack your jackets. But no, so we're at Richmond, like, Damien Hardwick picks us up. We roll into the car park, and Jack Rewalt's running into the club, and he's like, I got to talk to this guy today. And I'm like, what's going on with him? And he's like, he just said some stuff in the media, like about how maybe the coaching staff doesn't have the right mix or whatever, because this is mid-season, and I guess they weren't like killing it just yet. So we get in there, and like, sure enough, you're in some psych evaluation thing, and I'm just like talking to the assistant coaches upstairs in the facilities, and you see him like running across the field to go catch the train. And I'm like, what is he doing? And all the coaches are like, oh my gosh, like he's like, all the media's in the car park of like waiting to ask him these like tough questions. And I guess they caught him on camera, like running across to catch the train. So like he got busted anyway, like trying to avoid the media. But I'm like, is that really what it is here? Like, this that big of a deal? Because you make one comment and there's like 15 people at your doorstep trying to doorstop you to talk about like, what is it like to, it's just crazy. And like, that's the thing that's crazy about the media here in general, right? Like, every week you're either like kind of win the premiership or your career's over. It's like, man, you just can't catch a break. I feel like you specifically, but like, it's not just you. It's like a lot of other players as well. So I don't know.
I do remember that. And you tell the story of like, cause they have this like, it's kind of like a third story up, and you've got this like aerial view of the whole field. You just see Jack just go bang straight out the gates, and it's right really next to the Richmond station. So he's playing this out. There's no doubt that he's like, I think I've got this. I think I can possibly get away. They won't even know. I'll get back in, and apparently the next day at the club, you'll have to come in and get asked again. I don't know, but
so good.
You should just leave your car there and just pick it up another time.
It seems like things turned around for them. Seems like they
a couple years later, won 3 of the last 4.
They're good. Anyway, that was one of the funnier stories I remember from that trip.
They even asked you to play in their like local I did rec basketball team.
So all the coaches were like, we got a rec basketball team. Like, you played basketball growing up, come on. So I was like, whoever's got shoes, and I went and
just throwing alley-oops into the Anzac, just absolutely dominating.
Listen, your boy had hops back in the day.
Oh man. All right. Well, we're going to a bit of, I guess, like going into this whole experience, right? So we met up with 4 teams, or 5 teams really, if you count Fremantle. We did have a little meeting with them.
That's right.
Now we get to the back end of this, right? And I'll never forget, like we're in the Crown, I think it was, and big kind of like wrap up of the whole experience. Like, we'll go back, I guess, to the first AFL game. We're at Geelong.
Yeah,
I'll tell this story about the meat pie.
That's right.
Piece of shit.
I chucked mine about 10 rows deep.
Absolute piece of shit. Can you tell that story?
Oh my gosh.
Because I feel like I've told it maybe once or twice, but it'd be great to hear it from yours.
So the meat pie is like the hot dog of whatever, right? So so hot dog at a baseball game in America is kind of it's same, right? So we get to the game, and I've never been to a footy game. We don't know what a meat pie is. We don't know.
We didn't know what 6 points was.
No clue, right? So the first VFL game you played, I remember like somebody kicked a point. My mom's like, "Let's go, Collingwood." And people are like, we don't like points.
She did Anzac Day. And it was like, she like stood up in the crowd. She's like, yay, go team. And I was like, it's not a good thing, Mom. She's like, but there's a point on the board. I was like, I guess it could be worse.
Could be worse, yeah.
But not the best.
No, it's not good. But no, we go to this game and everyone's like, again, like overly welcoming. So the North coaches or the, whoever it was, they're like, let's gotta get you a meat pie. It's like the quintessential Australian experience. So we're getting this like half cooked, like half cold meat pie down in Geelong. Rough. It's like pretty cold. Yeah, absolutely. So I took one bite and I was like, Mason, and you're like, dude, no way this is happening. So I go, all right. So I stuck it back in the little pouch thing comes in, right? And like next thing that they turn around, I like just chuck it down to the and they turn around, like I'd done it too quick. So they're like, oh my gosh, finished already. You want another one? And I'm like, no, full. Poor Mason sitting there with like all the ketchup slathered on this thing. And everyone's like, what do you think? And you're like, pretty good. Thank you. Thank you.
Please give me a contract.
Yeah, exactly. But then like the songs start coming and I'm like, got the We Are Geelong. And I'm like, and we both start looking at each other like, this is not real. They're not really getting hyped to this song. Like nobody's getting hyped to this song. This is ridiculous. So that was like the funniest, but that was like the first game we went to. And it was like kind of the cool little boutique stadium down the coast. And then we went to the Port Hawthorn game, I think, like at Adelaide Oval, which is also like those teams were flying at the time.
Those were being decked out. They decked us out all gear, making sure. And like that was all I had. I remember we went out that night and I went out in Port Adelaide
full on Port Adelaide gear out in the town. And they're like, oh, you're the guy on the TV. So yeah, that was crazy. Well, I remember like even when we got to Adelaide, there was like cameras at the airport. Like, Mason Cox is in town. I'm like, this guy's like not even decided if he's going to come play AFL yet. And they're like, don't worry, it's a sleepy town, Adelaide. I'm like, you guys can't talk at all. Melbourne's got more cameras than anywhere I've ever seen. It's ridiculous. So
I'll never forget, we actually got on that plane. It was like a 7 a.m. flight to Adelaide. And I was so exhausted from
they had
the jet lag and everything else was going on. I remember falling asleep, and everyone's probably done this, like falling asleep with their head on like the seat in front of them.
Yeah.
And then I like woke up, and then like that night I see myself on camera, like watching the news or something, and I've got this big crease of like the table that keeps it up. It's just like this big crease across my forehead of that, and I was just like, oh great, this is a great first look for Adelaide.
Awesome.
Sure, they'll be real interested.
Whatever. And they were the ones that didn't offer a contract. I remember you like being in that like psych evaluation thing too, and they're like, why do you want to do this? Like, what is your motivation? And you're like, well, I love it. I just love the sport, whatever. And Ken Higley goes, you don't love it. You don't even know it existed until 3 weeks ago. And I was like, that's actually fair enough.
Yeah. They grilled me in that side.
They did grill you on that one.
Yeah, but like, fair call.
Well, the one was, they were like, well, like, how are you going to possibly make it not living at home? Or you're like, I haven't lived at home for 5 years.
Like, it's different.
It is different. Right? It's like you go off to university, like you're not going back every weekend to, you see your parents like once every 6 months, kind of the same as what you would here. So it's different. But yeah, that was a fun trip. But like,
it's like literally we went to the Geelong game the night before. We didn't get back to Melbourne until like 3 o'clock. And then we were on a 7 o'clock flight, which meant we would be up at like 4:35. And we're just being like 2 hours of sleep, got to Adelaide, then they're like straight into the boots, go train against this other fellow that, I forget his name now, but he was playing basketball. We were like, looking at him and he was just like, bang, one-on-one. Go at it, kick a ball up and just whoever comes up with it. And I was like, I'd barely even seen a football at this point. And they're just like, essentially, I think they're trying to, they always, I remember when I first came here, they said, how much CUNT do you have in you? And they're always like, how much does he have in him? Is he really like, is he going to really want to do this? And I kind of get it, because it's like, if this guy tries to have a worldwide, like, we're going to invest in him. Like,
for
you
sure.
best believe we need to make sure that he's going to put enough effort into
it. They see you playing Monopoly when you're 8 years old, they would know that you're a board flipper. You're the type of guy that gets down and
board flipper and stole a few 500s out of the board, as we all do. How'd you end up with Park Place? Oh, it was about 6 hours ago. I just, I bought it. I don't know. Well, it was a crazy trip, and I think we got to the end. I'll talk about this instance where the Crown, and I remember like this whole time, like they're not only kind of whining, dining, red carpet myself, but because they knew you were the person in my ear, like you got all the benefits and all the different stuff you could possibly imagine.
Life is actually even better.
And you're still living that life.
That's not bad. Yeah, I keep saying, everyone's like, hey, come out to Australia a lot. And I'm like, well, until Mason gets a legit girlfriend or gets married, like I'm going to keep living that +1 life as long as I can.
If anyone's listening to the pod, that's not happening anytime soon. So dating life, not so well. You could talk about some interesting dating stories I'm sure you've heard in the past. But we go back to that last day. So like you're getting wine to dine, everything's happening right. And we get to this kind of pointy end of this trip, and it kind of comes to the point where like they had told us, okay, every contract's going to be the same.
Yep.
And like financially is going to be the same. It might be benefits in the sense of like Collingwood might have more followers, which might help, build your brand outside, whatever it might be, or you might have a better opportunity of getting a job somewhere else because they've got more connections, whatever it might be. And I remember we get to this dinner, and I don't remember where it was. It wasn't like a Nobu, but it was like a very fancy dinner, and like there was beers flowing. It was like, hey, thanks so much for coming. Great job. Awesome.
Like, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Right.
It's been great for me. I've had
two more, please.
Yeah. I haven't strapped up a pair of boots the whole time, and I'm just,
living the dream for 2 weeks.
For sure.
And we get through this dinner, and then we go for more drinks, and there's like, I'll never forget this little place, and it's like right next to the entrance, and there's a little mini bar, and everyone's hanging out, having drinks and stuff, and they kind of get weeded out and stuff and whatnot. And then we get to the pointy end. We were given 2 agents that kind of were giving us an idea of what it would look like, the contract, and because we're ignorant. Like you did a business degree, but like, did you have any experience as a sport agent? No. And I remember going up to this, I think it was like a sports bar upstairs.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty pissed. Like I was quite drunk at this point. Like we had a few beers in us. And I remember sitting there, I'll never forget this moment. It's like, they sit there, and this is the first time we had talked about financials this whole trip.
Right.
And they give like all the contracts the different clubs are given to me. And then like we both looked at each other and we're looking at these, and I'm like, I can't even read the letter.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Like, you're gonna finally talk numbers when we're like 10 years deep.
Just hammered.
Not what you
and
want.
I'm like, I remember sitting there and they like start chatting for like 5-10 minutes. And I just kind of look at you and I was like, you're like, can we just get like 5 minutes? Can we get 10 minutes? Just we're gonna have a chat about this. I remember like going off to the side, and I was like, yo, I'm hammered. Like, are you okay? I was like, do you know what's going on? You're like, no. I was like, should we be making life decisions under this circumstances? You're like, no. And so we go back. We're like, thanks so much, guys. Can you just give us a little bit of time?
We'll think about
We'll go back home. We'll talk to the family, and we'll have a conversation with them and see if we want to come out here. But the AFL had already invested this because they had already gone through and told the media that I was coming. They kind of pushed this whole thing of like tallest player to ever play, American coming out here. It's going to be this great, great thing for the game and all this. And like they had put a lot of investment into it. And like you said, I had not said I was coming. Like I had a job at ExxonMobil. Like I wasn't 100% invested in this since I knew I was going to come yet.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, well, isn't it like kind of a waste of a college degree, this and that? But like you were able to negotiate the contract based on what Exxon had already offered, right? So like you got paid more than what a normal rookie would. And then it's off the salary cap because it's a rookie, like international rookie. See, I did my homework.
Yeah, exactly.
Homework. So yeah, no, that was cool. But like to your point, I mean, it was still like probably a little dicey where they're like, man, this guy better come over because we've been really hyping it up in the media for the last week or so. So yeah. So, but like, yeah, we were in no state to make that decision at the stage of the game. So, kept on rolling.
It was a unique circumstance. I remember flying back, and there was a guy named Chris who had come to the combine in the US early stages, came to the combine, was like a hype man, right? So he's like, this fella's like hyped up, he's like, oh man, like the boys, all this kind of shit, And I was like, not probably the person they thought they'd get out of it, this like suburban, like walk on white guy that just was like, an engineer. Like, I don't think that was probably the person they were thinking was going to come out of this. And I never forget, Chris was on that flight, over to, I think it was from LA, like when we flew through LA, or maybe on the way back from the US. And Collingwood Collingwood's very good at this, and Derek Hans is very good at this, and I loved it because I love ruthlessness whenever it comes to like recruiting. And he schmoozed it. He lathered it up, just lathered it up, and whatever you need, let us know, whatever it is, We've got all the connections in the world and all this kind of stuff, and they do have quite a bit. And I'll never forget, Chris sat next to us on the plane, and this is a guy that like was kind of hired by Collingwood essentially to like be in my ear, and somehow he had sorted out the airplane tickets that the AFL had booked for us, and then decided to book a ticket literally right next to us. We had a guy in our ear for like 17 hours straight talking to us how great Collingwood was.
Because the trip wasn't a Collingwood trip. It was a trip to the AFL. We were supposed to be like meeting all the different teams, and like we had no idea this guy was even coming. But somehow they not only find out that we're coming, he's sitting right bang next to us on the whole flight. And like halfway through the flight, basically gets up to go to us. He's like, I can't listen to this guy anymore. You got to swap seats with me. And so he's a super nice guy, but man, it was just like, we can't listen to 17 hours of this. Like I got to take a nap.
So 100%. Well, we'll go into, I guess, now the AFL career. So everything obviously panned out. Simon Collingwood, all this kind of stuff. And we are ignorant. Like we kind of have no idea. And I've called you many a times going, do I want to keep playing? Do I not? Is this really worth it? What's going on? All this kind of stuff. And you've kind of known me through the highs and lows and everything else I've gone through. And there's very few people I feel like that probably have the background information that you do of like kind of my experiences and the lows and the highs. And we'll talk a bit of both, I guess, but the first year, obviously very, very hard moving to a country where you don't know anyone. You've never heard of the place, never heard of Melbourne in my life.
Yep.
Moving to a country to play a sport you never heard of. And I guess my reliance was a lot on you to give me a bit of advice on, saying, this isn't like, just stick it out. You've got a 3-year deal, stick it out. In worst case scenario, like if things move on in life, you've got that in your back pocket, you go back to working an engineering job. Now, I will say this, and I don't know if you remember this moment. We were in St. Kilda.
Yeah.
It was after the chaos of just the AFL trip, right? And it was like this fucking nuts. And it's probably one of the first actual conversations we've had. It was like man to man kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we were sitting down this I don't even know, this little brick ledge, looking out at the beach going what the fuck have we just got ourselves into? I had no idea. And we're like, well, we thought this wasn't real. Now we've come into a game. We've seen that it can house 30,000 people, 40,000, 100,000 people with MCG. Have walked out onto the stadium and been able to walk around and see how big of a deal this is, because we didn't think it was real. And we're like, all right, well, now we've got to the back into this where we're probably going to get a deal. What do we do? And it's kind of this moment in life where everyone has these, it might go one way or it might go the other. And I think on that beach in St. Kilda, it was we essentially said nah, you're going to actually do this thing. And it was holy shit, I'm about to move my life to this place I know nothing about and just have this massive just risk I'm about to take in life. And I'll be interested now, I guess, what were you thinking whenever you were kind of going through this whole process of me and what I was kind of mentally all over the place and not really sure what I was going to do and had a job and everything else and giving it up and all that. But you had kind of already been to work a proper career already and you kind of had an idea. What was it kind of like, I guess, giving advice?
No, that was exactly it, right? So I played, we had like we just talked about, very, very similar life experience up to that point, playing college basketball. You don't really think anything's going to happen after that. And I just remember sitting on the pier or whatever it was, that little ledge in St. Kilda, and you're what do you think? What should we do here? And I was like, look, for me, I'm proud of you either way. You're going to go and work for an awesome, massive company back in the States. They're going to have this crazy adventure. I've worked 4 or 5 years at that point in the corporate world, and I can tell you, not that cool. It's not that cool. Sitting in a cubicle all day or whatever. So I was like, look, your college degree never expires. Your athleticism does. You will never probably have a day where you're sitting on the field in Australia being man, I really wish I was in a cubicle right now. That'd be awesome, because you're going to have plenty of those days probably in the future. Which,
in a cubicle, went that way.
So, but I'm if you pass this up, I can guarantee you there will be multiple times a year where you sit there in your cubicle in Houston thinking man, it'd be cool to be in Australia right now. I wonder what would happen, it's look, I'm proud of you either way. Do whatever you want. I really don't care. I'm not trying to tell you to do one thing or the other, but for me, there's one path that will always be there, and the other one pretty much leaves when we leave Australia if you decide it does. So do with that what you wish. And then we didn't really talk about it again. I don't think the rest of that trip. I was just kind of just leave it with you, because like I said, I'm proud either way. So we get back, and then we kind of talked about it a little bit more once we got back to the States, and just enjoyed the rest of the trip. But ended up deciding to go, and then obviously ended up at Collingwood.
You ever worried about me being over here on my own?
Not really. Again, after seeing the Hester House, if he can survive that, I think he's going to be all right. So, but honestly, man, getting over here and the more I've come throughout the years, it's so cool meeting all the different people you've met here, because I get to know your really good friend group, then all the people you work with, and all, and it's once you meet and get to know the network that you've created over here, and all the people that are essentially helping you along, it makes you worry a lot less, because you're oh, he's got really, really good people that'll make sure he's taken care of regardless. So, and there's been a ton of them through the years, right? So it's, once you kind of see that and see the infrastructure that you have around you, you don't really worry at all.
Yeah,
it's good.
I think it is one thing I always talk about Australians and their willingness to be able to help other people out and stick a hand out whenever someone needs something. And it's never their experience. They expect something back. It's always how can I help this person be a better human? And
it's wild.
It's really cool. Unlike anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they're kind of there is this whole tall poppy syndrome. But I think before you get to that status in life of being able to say you're successful, a lot of people want to get you to the successful point.
Yep.
And then once you get there and then you become media and all this other stuff, then people try to bring you back down to where you were.
Yeah.
So there's never I guess it's kind of this weird happy medium somewhat. But I have found it amazing that Australians are so willing to say, oh, you're from a different, I couldn't tell you how many people have gone, oh, you're from, no, come over for dinner. Come over for dinner, come see the family, don't worry about it. And it's it's amazing. I just have never experienced that kind of hospitality anywhere else.
But then once you get to a certain level, then you got to start giving back, right? Then
exactly.
Then you get to be the person, and that feels even better than anything, right? Like being able
I'm
to
somewhere there
give
now
some
with
of those,
like being one of the older guys in the club. Now I got some of the younger guys. I'm like, oh, like I'll give you this. Like, come with me. Come to this experience. Do this or that.
Well, like even little things. Like I remember we were driving back from Fraser Island, and like we pulled over. You see, this is like after Queen's birthday, you kicked 5, like won the whatever the Neil Danaher Trophy and all that stuff. And like so it was a really big week. And like you got the bye week the next week, so we go to Fraser and like just see some kids kicking the footy on the side of the road, and I'm like, dude, let's go have a kid. And so we sure enough like pull over on the side of some random street out in Queensland, God knows where, and like these kids are like, what are you doing here? Like, I would have a kick. It's like, and like, could not tell you, like, absolutely made their day. And like, being able to like make somebody's day just by giving an odd handball at the park or whatever, like that stuff is really cool. So like, I don't know. So sometimes it's as small as that. And then sometimes it's, like you said, like taking along some of the younger folks that are on the squad or whatever, and like kind of, helping them get into the media stuff or into, stuff outside of footy and making sure that people are like set up for the next phase of life. Cause I feel like that's something that, no matter the sport, like across the world, a lot of people just don't probably plan for that as well as they could. Yeah.
It's just it's not like making hay while the sun shines. Like everyone has a finite end to their footy career. No one's going to really retire from it. You have to get a job after. And it's being able to use the connections and stuff within it to be able to kind of, I guess, somewhat leverage yourself into a career after. And a lot of people regret not doing that until the end.
Yeah.
And, it is interesting though, but like, that's my favorite part thing about playing AFL is like I didn't grow up with it. I don't have a team I loved growing up or this or that, and it's just like, it's cool to see how much it means to other people. And like being with the club, like we've been able to experience people that, have not been dealt the greatest hand in life and might be towards the back end or given terminal cancer, whatever it is. And like to be able to give them the happiness by just hanging out with them for the day or be like, come to training. Like we'll show you around the place, whatever it is, it's like, that's cool to me because I just don't look at it as like this crazy. It is a crazy thing, but it's not like I always hope there's going to be better things in life once I'm done. Like you always kind of have this idea of like, there's always going to be something better, like I'm going to be able to do something cooler or this or that,
And even on that trip, like you were like, well, I don't like these kids don't care. I was like, Mason, remember when you were that age? Like how cool it would have been if this person would have pulled over on the side of the road and just had to, you're like, I'm like,
lost their mind.
Yeah, you would have lost your mind. Like, go give them that experience. It's like some of that stuff. So it is like tough to sort of think back to like when you were that age and some of those things. And to be able to give like some of that joy, like, I mean, what else is sport about, right?
So seriously, it's about just kind of like giving people a bit of hope, I think, more than anything. We'll go to my first game. Now the whole family came out on Anzac Day. This is a big day. Big day. Now,
well, selection's on like the Wednesday or Thursday. So I'm like, selection happens, get a text from the club, Mason's in. Book a flight. I literally booked a flight out of Houston. It's the only one I could find that was leaving within the next like 3 hours. And I had to leave like right
on
then,
the day.
So like book a flight, get home, pack it, carry on, and then just drive to Houston. It was just like 2.5 hours to drive away. And I'm like literally flying out. I made my flight by like 45 minutes. So I barely like make this flight to Australia and then get in, the morning of the game or whatever. And man, just like flat on. But yeah, crazy day.
Crazy day.
One of my favorite parts, they do the first kick, first goal, right? Like, because nobody can stop gambling in this country, apparently.
Big deal.
Yeah, big deal. So they just had these like little envelopes at the table we were at with like whatever luncheon beforehand. And they're like, you can just put in one of the players' names to like, put $1 in, whatever it was, and I didn't have any Australian cash. I've like put in USD. Put in some USD. And these ladies next to me, they're like putting in money. I go, who are you guys going for? And I think they're like, this is Steel Side Bottom or somebody. I go, no, Mason Cox. And they start laughing at me. They're like, Mason Cox, the American.
The American. Idiot.
Like no chance. Kick any goals. I was like, that's my brother.
That's my brother, you dick.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And then sure enough, kick the first one. I go straight back to the table. I go, what do you think?
What do you think?
Like, pay up, ladies. Let's go. Ladies. No, it was good though. But no, what a fun day. It was crazy. Like just a whirlwind thing. And like the day, like the Anzac Day in general is such a cool thing because like you got the trumpet, like all the pregame stuff and the hype
unique to anything else.
Super unique and like just like clearly more than like about more than football. Like like both the teams run through the banner together, right? Like that doesn't happen. And there's stuff like that I think is just like a really kind of cool tradition that was like cool to see. And that's why that's the first game I've seen at the MCG as well. So like got 100,000 people there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wild. So that was a cool day and unreal trip.
That was probably the first time I realized how chaotic media can be. And it was like after that day, everyone was freaking out. And like I only kicked one goal in the day. It wasn't I was best on ground by any means. But people lost their effing mind. And it was like
crazy.
I remember going out to dinner and it was just like everyone was just like saying something about it. And like I was just like, this is wild. Like it is very much this idea, and I always say this is like big fish, small pond. Where like this is very much a bubble, and it's like everyone follows AFL, and it's the most. I'll say it's probably the highest followed per capita sport in the world. For a city,
for sure. And like, I was talking to Craig McRae about that this week, like when we were in Sydney at the game, and like he's like, man, the biggest thing that's different for me is just I was like, nobody knew who I was. Like I'm walking around Victoria and like I played for Brisbane like 20 years ago. Like people aren't, walking up asking for photos and stuff until like the last few months has just been chaotic. So it's like different. Like that's definitely like one of the biggest transitions just from last year to this year for him. He's like, I knew it was a big deal, obviously, but like, man, it's just wild, like being one of the people they want, they want the photos and stuff with. So
he's got his own badge at the club. Craig.
That's big time.
Oh, big time. Big time.
What is a badge?
A badge. Face. You know the little badge you
have? The badge. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Coach got one.
The one that mom has 17 of.
17 of, yes. 100%. She like buys the whole thing every year.
Yep.
We'll go to another game. Now, grand final. You missed the prelim, which is probably the best game of the career so far. Yeah, I know. And like, unfortunately, you came to Sydney, which was another prelim, and you thought maybe he's going to happen again. And then he gets subbed out at halftime. So it's probably the opposite end of the spectrum.
At halftime as I wasn't. Oh my goodness.
I know. But
halfway across the water. Tell you what, those flights to Sydney, they weren't lying. Not cheap.
Not cheap at all.
Especially from the United States.
Oh, people complaining about getting from Melbourne to Sydney. And I was like, well, the whole fam's coming in from the US, so don't complain to me.
Yeah.
Now, the grand final. Now, you'd never been to a grand final, like the chaos of it and everything else. Like, I think you were on Media Street probably more than anyone else I'd known. Like you were.
I think your agent was like, "Oh, we have something. They want to like film you guys drinking Carlton beer and like eating these like meat pies." I was like, "I was going to do that anyway."
Vegemite. And
I was like, that was going to be my Saturday either way. So or Friday. I think it's the Friday, right? So like, So we land straight away. Like we landed. I'm such an idiot. I land and like there's like media at the airport, like for me and Austin, like our other brother getting in town.
There's cameras at the airport.
There's cameras at the airport.
Holy smokes.
And they were like, "Oh, Mason Cox's family gets here from America," and I'm like,
they love
ridiculous.
They love it.
Sure enough, they're like, "Oh, can we get a word?" So I talked to him for a second, and then they pull off, and the van's leaving. I'm like, I should have asked him for a ride back into town. I'm like such an idiot. But anyway, so I ended up getting an Uber back in. But yeah, it was just like straight through. And I was like, it's kind of the same thing. You don't know your plan until you win the prelim. So like, book a flight on the flight the next day. Like, it's like goodness, man. So been some cool stuff. Like just flying half a world away on the last minute. Which flights are never cheaper when you get them last minute. It's all good. So I guess I've been to like 6 or 7 games at this point. I went to Anzac Day. I went to the Queen's birthday. Queen's birthday was arguably like one of your best games, like 2018. 5 goals. Most goals you've kicked, right? And
a bag, as I say, a bag. That's right. Only time.
Kick the bag. Well, you're never getting leather poisoning, so you might as well get a bag every now and then. So went to that one. Then I went to the game in Brisbane this year, which I would say is
not my highlight. Not my highlight.
Yeah, and then the game was Sydney, and then I guess that's maybe it. But
it's cool. For a guy who lives half a world away, I think it's a couple
really good ones and a couple rough ones along the way. But the way it goes.
Now we'll get into this because you do play AFL.
Ooh, yeah.
And I've mentioned it before. You've won a few more premierships than I have. And there is a league in the States called the USAFL. Right. Now I've been an ambassador for a long time. Like I've gone to the national tournament after our season every single year, pretty much, and it has become this big thing. I've fallen in love with it because it is kind of cool somewhat to be somewhat of a representative of like a nation and a sport that exists in a nation.
Yep.
And how did you? So you're playing for the Austin Crows. Now the other brother plays for Seattle Grizzlies. Shout out both of them. If you are in America listening to this, check out your local league.
AustinFooty.com. You go on there and jump in.
AustinFooty.com. Yes, love that. How did you find out AFL in the US existed?
So I'm thinking like there's got to be. So there's all these like English Premier League pubs that like they watch the soccer games at 10 in the morning or whatever. And I'm like, there's got to be something equivalent for AFL, right? Like I got to have some people I can go watch the games with. And like, at least I get stuck into the like, the culture of AFL. So like, I'm kind of Googling like, Austin footy bars, Austin foot, like any of that stuff. And I come across like Austin Crows football, right? So I'm like, I'll have to hit up these guys. They definitely, it seems like they know what's going on. So I email them like the generic email and I'm like, hey, do you guys like go watch the games at all? And they're like, well, come out for a kick. I'm like, no, I just want to watch the games. No.
I don't want to get murdered. I just want to watch
exactly.
games.
Like, so they're like, no, come for a kick. Like, we'll tell you. And so I'm like, oh God. So we go to Zilker Park, which is like where they hold Austin City Limits Music Festival, big, beautiful park in, Central Austin. Same park you got the phone call from Frio with, might've been right next to you on that one. Probably.
Yeah. If you haven't heard that story, it's on the last, it's on one of the previous ones of Fremantle. Check the TikTok and the Instagram.
Yeah,
There's a little thing out there about me getting almost traded to Fremantle while I was absolutely hammered at ACL.
So the first couple of times I go down, and they always train on Tuesdays, and first couple of times it's just pouring rain. I'm like, I'll make a quick lap and see if they're there. And I do see them out there kicking the ball, and I'm like,
It's raining.
It's pretty wet out there. It's kind of cold. I don't know. So I'll just keep on cruising by. So I keep going. And then eventually, like, it's a nice day. I'm like, I'll go out for a kick the ball around. I'm like, it's a full-on league. Like, they're running drills. They're like running, all this stuff. I'm like, all right, so we'll see. And I end up like becoming friends with some of these guys. End up, kind of playing. They're like, we got a game this Saturday. So like, I don't know how physical it's going to be, any of that stuff. So I'm like probably pretty hungover at this point on a Saturday morning, 10 a.m. game. And we're coming, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like 100 degrees out in Austin. Go out and I'm just like getting smashed around in the rut because they're like, listen, this guy can't kick. He just like, first time he ever attempted to kick a ball was like last week.
Been there.
But he can jump. He's 6'6", and he's got some hops. So I rolled into the ruck and then like ended up, just kind of getting sucked in from there. Like we just kind of go grab beers, whatever, after training. And it's just like a really good, and again, like it's kind of exactly what I had hoped for in terms of the social outlet of like having people that I can talk to about footy and watch the games with and stuff like that. But they have like a full-on league there. I'm like, they have regional tournaments, and they travel like once or twice a year to these big national tournaments. And so like there's like a national tournament at the end of each season, and like next thing you know, we're like playing, this. So our team like ends up. Turns out, like, for whatever reason, I live in the city with like the best like local footy club in America. It's like these guys are just smashing people like every single year. So I end up
getting the NTFL playing.
Yeah. So my buddy Kendrick like played Sandful, I think, for a few years, and NTFL and some of that stuff. And like we got some guys that played like pretty high level, like some we have a guy this year that played Port Melbourne VFL last year. So like we got some guys that like actually are pretty legit. So so I end up getting stuck in with this group, and like really it kind of became like really good friends with a lot of them. And it's about half Australians, half like Americans, or we've got like a French guy and a guy from Fiji or something like that. Anyway, so like all over the place, right? So like but it's a cool league. It's like definitely like a little bit of Australian expats and a few Americans. So it's like kind of a good way to grow the game, I suppose. But like for me, it's just a good way to like sort of stay connected with what's going on back here, and gives a good like athletic endeavor outlet. Because like once you're done playing sport in America, like they don't have these
options.
There's no country footy leagues like they'd have here, right? There's no country footy equivalent of like basketball or American football. Like if you don't play American football in college, or even if you do play in college, like once you're done, you're done. Like you never play again. So
like 99% of athletes go pro in something other than sports.
Yeah, that's right. So
it's like classic, like
you can't even, so like even to have somebody to go throw a football with is just like, people don't really go do that. So I'm like, this is great. Like we got
sporting outlet.
There's 40, there's 40 or 50 clubs here in the United States, and like I somehow end up on like the best ones, like playing, these national tournaments. So end up being like a really good, just kind of outlet. And again, like a good way to stay connected back here. So it's pretty sweet.
Now I want to ask you this, because a lot of people don't know this, and you're being a bit humble. Now, so they've got best and fairest for the tournament.
Yeah.
So there's a big national tournament where everyone kind of comes, and that's where the winner kind of becomes the whole thing. It was in Austin last year.
Yeah.
The boys won. Boys got lit. Boys drinking out of the cup. Old Foss. Whoa.
We call the beer out of the cup fossil fuel. Fossil's this guy who's like, it's like mid 50s at this point. So again, this is not high level football. He played.
You've
like,
got sponsors on your jerseys that are pubs.
Yeah. He played like Footscray. Yeah, he played like pretty high level when he was younger. But anyway, so yeah.
So how many best and fairest have you won?
I think I've won best and fairest at our club, I think 4 times for our club, and then like I've won the best in the grand final for the big national tournament twice, I want to say, and then
best on for the whole tournament.
Best on for the whole tournament like once or twice as well. So yeah, having a pretty good little crack over in the States. Again, very low level. This is not
hype it up, pocket.
This is not
hype it up, pocket.
No, there's some good players for sure, but like I'll tell you what, when you're like the 6'6" ruck who can like get your hands on it a bit, like it's you get a lot more touches than you probably should, and go forward and kick a goal or two, then you're pretty well set for some of these medals that you probably don't deserve.
I'll say this, man. There's some people, because everyone used to play NFL, there's some people who just see it as an opportunity to absolutely run through someone. And there was I was seeing some absolutely brutal things, like probably more brutal than the AFL over at USAFL.
What's great is I found out that you can win medals without laying a tackle.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
6 years.
Well, it is unique though, and it's really cool, because like this whole thing, obviously in the US, and to see sports somewhat make it over there, and these opportunities, and you talked about before, and that's something I want to eventually do in my lifetime, is try to bring other Americans over here, because there's such a limit as far as opportunities post NCAA and everything else if you're not at the very, very high end.
And there's so many athletes over there. There's some guys that are absolute freaks that like would just dominate if they could go, like learn how to kick at a younger age or whatever, right? Like it's there's some like spatial awareness to the game when you're like if you're 6 foot and under, that you'd really kind of need to grow up playing the sport. But like, there's some big boys out there that could just really wreck it up, right? If they like
hell of a lot better than athletes than I am.
Well, I'm going to say that, but
it is very awkward on my side to be able to hand medal to your brother who's showing and proving to be a better athlete than myself every single year. But I'll ask you this. I want to kind of move on from the USAFL now. As a brother, you see me do a lot of random shit, right? So obviously came here and I had no idea anyone. And now I'm kind of doing all this random stuff and starting a podcast and all this other shit. Where do you see me and what's the most ridiculous thing you see me doing in the future, do you think?
Anything involving politics. I think like, so, I think any kind of like ambassadorship like would be a pretty cool thing.
Do you think I could get like an OAM medal or something like that? Is that what they call it? AOM or Order of Australia? OAM medal.
What is that?
Order of Australia medal. Essentially, that ridiculous thing called the Queen and the royal family? They kind of like acknowledge you and say like you're a better human than others.
Got it. Yeah. No, I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't think you'll be getting any of those medals anytime soon. But no, I think like, I guess you're a citizen now, right? So like maybe you can jump into some of that stuff. So I think
I have to give up my U.S. citizenship is the problem.
That's okay. Yeah. So as far as like ridiculous things, that's like maybe one of the things.
Like the U.S. ambassador to Australia.
Ooh, there you go.
I think I would love that.
That would be pretty sweet. Yeah. I don't know. Try to hook that up. But no, I don't know. As far as like other ridiculous things, I mean, I could see you getting on like, I don't know if there's like a Bachelor equivalent in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe jump into something like that. Some reality TV. Maybe some like Dancing with the Stars.
Ooh, that's a question mark.
Yeah. No, I think like,
that'd be real embarrassing.
Right.
Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah. I've never seen a giraffe dance, but it'd be kind of fun to see. Get you going in there.
Maybe two-step.
Yeah.
Country dance.
Listen,
country line dance.
That's right. That is one good thing about the country experience back in college. But no, outside of that, I think, probably continue to do a bit of media, maybe some travel, try to parlay some of that into something like this.
Maybe I think The Bachelor, I like that.
Yeah.
Tell some terrible stories about being on The Bachelor and oh gosh, I'd be ruthless. I feel like that. I'd absolutely tear apart some of the women that come on there. They just are there for the fame.
You should, yeah.
Like, it'd be great. It'd be great viewing.
That's how
great viewing.
I tell you, went out for The Bachelor one year.
What?
Went out for The Bachelor. There's
how far'd you go?
They had open casting in Austin. Well, they put me through. So like,
so you made it to the next round.
Oh yeah. So they had open casting in Austin.
Jeez,
and it's like, and we're thinking, I'm like probably 24, 25 at this point. I'm single. It's like right next to where I'm living. So I'm like, I can walk over there. And if there's open casting for The Bachelor, like, gonna be some good looking young ladies there. So we're gonna go say hello. And so we did like the whole try. It was pretty just kind of like a random Tuesday, and I'm like, whatever. And then sure enough, they called back. They're like, we want you to like go to the next round. We want to fly you to they did not want to fly me anywhere. They said, we need to get you, we need you to come to Dallas or wherever it was this like Thursday. Exactly. And I was like, I'm good. So I never actually like went forward on it, but it was kind of a fun. I was like, it's a bit of a pump up. Yeah. But yeah, it was funny. It was like, yeah, definitely.
Well, I'll try to carry the torch. Maybe I'll be on The Bachelor as a Cox brother.
There you go.
Before we get out of here, any embarrassing stories you want to throw me under the bus with?
I don't know. Like maybe when I taught you how to ride a bike, that was
yes, please tell us.
So we got a big hill by our house, and I'm like, all right, let's just get him going. Like on two wheels.
Can I set the scene here? I'm 12. Most people learn to ride their bike at like 6.
I had a two-wheeler. It's like 2 years old.
I was more the guy on the scooter, the Razor, because I was like, it's way easier to stay on than an actual bike.
Well, on 2 wheels, it's obviously the faster you get going, the easier it is to stay up. So I'm like, listen, let's just take him to the top of the hill. We'll get him going nice and fast, and he'll be able to stay up. Because otherwise, he's like too nervous to get going too fast. So he keeps tilting one way or the other. So like, get him up to the top of the hill. We get him rolling down. Rolling Media, shout out. Rolling out. Is this named after Guy Fieri, this thing? He's rolling out. So get him rolling downhill. And I forgot to tell him which one was the brakes. He had no idea which of the brakes. And he smashes into this mailbox. He's got blood coming out of his gut. And I'm like, oh no, Mom's going to be pissed. So like,
Mom's going to be pissed.
I'm like, he starts crying. I'm like, just get inside. And so, we got him into the side. But like, outside of that, it was like a pretty funny one. There was definitely one, we were playing indoor soccer. We were kids, and Mom had this old oil painting of her like great aunt who was like
passed away when she was young, and it was like a family heirloom,
120-year-old painting, and like it's got the original glass, the original frame, all this stuff, and Mace just goes over the proverbial crossbar straight into this glass painting, smashes the glass. I'm like, Mom, Mason broke something.
It was Mason. Mason did it. I had nothing to do with this.
And she's like, I mean, I've never seen her that mad. I don't think yet in my life. And rolls in. But yeah, so needless to say, the painting survived. The frame is fine. Barely. that 150-year-old glass is
redone.
absolutely cooked. Yeah, so had to take it back into the frame shop. But now there's probably a couple others that should probably remain off air.
That's more college.
Save for the next time.
The good old days of sneaking out. Yeah.
Well, what was great about so we had this 1961 Ford Ranchero as our first car. So anytime you wanted to leave the house late night, it was tough getting out. But if you left early enough, because this thing was loud.
It was you could hear it rolling down from 5 blocks away. Like
3
it
on
was
the tree.
proper loud.
So you've got the shifter up top on the steering column.
Yeah.
Well, if you wanted to come home late night, so you couldn't get out late night because it's too loud. Like you just like
you could.
Well,
so
you
what you got to do is you put it neutral. You get your buddy. I got Chad Caldwell, a good friend of mine. He just pushed the front, pushed it out in neutral, eventually rolled down the rest of the hill, and then turned it on around the corner.
But again, the same hill that you can roll down on your bike and smash into the mailbox with, you can use that same hill, throw the car in neutral, makes not a sound, and drift it right on into the driveway, and then nobody knows what time you got home, and you wake up the next day feeling awful.
Mom and Dad were never the wiser.
Nope. All good.
Oh, man. All right. Well, is there any other stuff you want to embarrass me with while we're on this?
I think we're all set for today. Maybe we'll save some for the next one.
We'll do a part 2 whenever you come back next time.
There we go.
Well, a massive thank you for coming on. Hopefully people have learned a bit more about the journey of myself, yourself, everything else, all the crazy stories that come with it. We'll write a book one day, I'm sure. But we'll say massive thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Thanks for flying out here. I know I only played half a footy and you've spent probably 10 grand to get out here, but hopefully it was worth it.
It's all good.
Yeah, maybe next time, maybe next year.
Thanks for having me. We're all probably super proud, obviously, of what you've accomplished over here. So I definitely appreciate you giving us the platform to share some of the stories. And it's pretty cool what you got here with the podcast as well. So look forward to hearing more of them. But thanks for having me. And it's been a really cool experience from day one.
From day one, and we're still kicking on.
That's right.
Still kicking on. Year 9 coming up.
That's right.
Who would have guessed? If we can get double digits, that'd be huge.
That'd be real
huge.
Big.
Get 100 games, that'd be massive.
I would be back. What are you on?
94.
94. All right. 6 more. Let's go.
100 games, 100 goals. That's it.
I like it.
I've already done the 100 goals. Just got to get to 100 games. But thanks so much, mate. As always, everyone, before we finish up, we got the 7 platforms: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, and Apple. Follow us all on those. Check it out. We got some amazing stuff. We got some interesting talks Brad and I have been having recently. And we're going to get back onto this schedule. And we're going to seriously have some amazing stuff coming up and a lot of catch-ups and everything else. Some embarrassing stories I'll probably go into more. But as always, thanks so much for listening and very excited to have you on. Like, share, everything else. And we'll speak to you soon. See ya.